Right. Yeah. It's
Java Development Kit.
right. So JDK stands for, okay, not writing. Okay. Uh, JDK stands for Java Development Kit, and it has both developer tools, dev tools, and runtime environment. Okay. So dev tools, uh, can anyone say what is an example of a dev tool? Which dev tool I was showing you something before. Any idea? Okay, I'll take it as no. We were using uh, Java C to compile. This is a compiler, Java compiler. So this is one of the dev tool which is coming from JDK. So if you have JDK, you can develop applications. And runtime environment is JRE. So if you take it as a big picture, this is JDK, and you can say this has this has dev tools, and this is JRE. JRE contains system. Okay, I will just try this. JRE contains system libraries. There is some lag. Okay, system libraries and JVM. So system libraries are something like uh, you will use this while you're coding. To give an example, it is some lag. For example, you can take it as java.lang. This is one of the system library you will use. Java.io for doing IO operations. There are some predefined libraries which are present in JRE that you can directly use in your code. Along with JRE, you have JVM. JVM is the main component of any Java application which is used to convert bytecode bytecode to machine understandable code. Machine code. Bear with my handwriting for a few days. I'm getting used to this gadget. Okay. So bytecode, as I was showing you, when you run Java C and file name, a file will be created. For example, I was showing you a Hello World application recently where we were printing Hello World to the console. So when you use Java C and run the file name, a dot class file will be created, right? If you remember, a dot class will be created. This file is called bytecode. This bytecode is not system dependent. So while creation of this bytecode, OS doesn't come into the picture. So once a class file is generated, for example, Rupa has created this dot class file in her system, and if she shares with me, I will be able to run this dot class file having just JRE in my system. So JRE provides runtime environment which has JVM. So JVM is the one which converts the bytecode. So JVM is the major thing in any Java application. It is responsible for converting bytecode. Bytecode is not system dependent. It converts to machine code. So this is machine code. So machine code is system dependent. It is like if you're running in Linux, it will generate a Linux file, and you are running in Windows, it creates a Windows file. So this is something system dependent, and bytecode is not this is not system dependent, I would say. So this is what we have discussed last class. And Rupa, you had some question. Did I answer your question today?
No, yeah, sir, I got it actually.
Okay, fine. Okay, so today we'll start with the actual coding. So I will just start with some math. If have studied some math, we will be writing x is equals to 5, y is equals to 7, something like this, some expressions like this in your math classes, right? What you are trying to do is you are assigning 5 value to x and 7 value to y. This is something that we do physically on our papers, notebook and papers. So if you want to do something similarly in programming, you define something like this: int x is equals to 5, int y is equals to 7. This is how you write the code in Java. This is how you assign values in your maths. This is how you write in programming. So there are three important components. One, data type. This is identifier, and these 5 and 7 are literals. So let's first start with data types. Or let's first start with this variable, x and y. So if you want to store some data into a place, so in programming, you do it via variables. So variable is another term. Variable is the location where data gets stored in computer. And a name given to variable is called as identifier. So here x is an identifier. It's just a name. But where the value 5 will be stored, it is a variable. And a data type shows what is the type of data you are what is the type of data you are storing in this particular value x. So data types are classified into three types in Java. One is numeric. You can store numbers in variables. You can store characters or strings. And the third type is Boolean. Boolean is like you can store true or false. Okay. And sorry, again. Numeric, there are classified into two types. One is integers, integer type without any floating values. Another one is floating type values. And integers are also of four types. One is byte. I'll tell you what these are all. Give me a minute. Byte, short, int, and last one is long. So here I was telling you this is a numeric type, right? 5 is a number. Satya is a string. So 5 can be stored in numeric data types, which are byte, short, int, and long. And Satya, which is a sequence of characters, it can be stored in an array of characters. I will discuss about this part later. Let's talk about numeric types. So byte, what is the difference between byte, short, int, and long? So there is a difference in amount of data it is storing. A byte has for 8 bits. So bit is just like 0 or 1. So as you guys know, computer understands only 0 and 1s. It doesn't understand anything in numbers or something. So everything that we write in a code, it converts into zeros or ones at the end. So byte stores 8 bits. So it can store like 0, 0, 0, 8 times, something like that. Short can store 16 bits, int can store 32 bits, and long can store 64 bits. So I was just telling you bits, but what is the value? Here I just shown 5. So byte, there is a formula actually. A byte, for example, I'll just write the formula 2 power n. um, 2 power n minus 1 minus 2 power n minus 1 to we'll just take a bit lower. So the value which a byte can store, there's a formula actually. There is 2 power n minus 1 to 2 power n minus 1 minus 1. So where n stands for bits, number of bits. So I was telling you byte can store 8 bits, right? So it is like minus 2 power 8 minus 1 to 2 power 8 minus 1 minus 1. So it evaluates to minus 2 power 7 to 2 power 7 minus 1, which is minus 128 to 127. So you can, in a byte, you can store values between this range only. So if you're storing something beyond 127 or less than 128, there will be some junk value that will be stored in the variable. So byte can hold only data between this range. Similarly, if you want to find the value for short, you just need to replace the value of n. Here n value will be 16. 2 power 16 minus 1 to 2 power 16 minus 1 minus 1. This will be the range for short. I'll stop here. Do you have any questions? Are you able to understand this?
No, yes, understood.
Great. So similarly for int, that is integer, it is 32 bits and long is 64 bits. So the long is the maximum value that we can store. Like it goes around 2 power 64 minus 1 to 2 power 63 minus something like this. This much value it can store in long. So you understand why there are 4 types in integers. Only the difference is the amount of data it stores. So long stores more data, byte stores less data. And the data will be some numbers. It doesn't have decimal values. So if you want to store decimal, you need to store it in float type. This is second thing. So in float, there are only two types, which is float and double. Float can store around 32 bits. Double can store around 64 bit. The same formula, if you insert here, you'll understand. So float types are something like 2.3, 5.6. If there is a decimal point, it is floating point value, and you need to store in float types. I hope you understood in numeric data types. Let's get into the character data types. So character is something that you store some alphabets. For example, how you define is character, char a is equals to a. This is how you store a character in Java. And if you want to store a string, for example, if you want to store the name Rupa, so you can store it as a sequence of characters. A string is a sequence of characters, basically. Uh, Something like this. It's a sequence of characters. Or you can write it as string as well. String a is equals to Rupa. Both are same. So this is how you represent characters. The last one is Boolean. Boolean is true or false, right? If you want to store true or false, you use Boolean. And how you define is Boolean uh, is even is equals to true. Something like this in Java. Okay, this is all about data types. So we discussed three parts, right? I'll again write it down to make it clear. So int x is equals to 5. So we discussed about this part, which is data type, right? This is the identifier. People usually call it as a variable also, but the technical word is identifier. Identifier. Identifier is a name given to a variable, just I have spoke before. So there are some conventions that you need to follow for naming things. One, it should have alphabets, meaning it should be A to Z or capital A to Z, or it can contain 0 to 9 numbers, or it can have an underscore or a dollar symbol. So the only you can form a name with this particular set. And the second rule here is a identifier should start with either alphabet or underscore or a dollar. Basically, it should not start with a number. An identifier should not start with a number. If you start, there will be a compile time error. So if you follow these two conventions, you can define any name, basically. And the third one, the value, we call it as, in technical terms, we call it as a literal. Again, literals are of numeric types, floating types, string, character types, and Boolean. You don't need to, this is not something that you need to, uh, learn. So literal, for example, 5 is an integer literal. 5.2 is a double literal. If you notice something, the default value, like as I was speaking, there are okay, there are numeric. Okay, I'll just type integer types, floating point types. Can someone say what are the integer types? I've just told you before. What are the 4 integer types?
So the byte, short, int, and long.
Yes, great. So we can store values in byte, short, int, and long. But the default literal, when we, for example, if I write float x is equals to 2.5. So this 2.5 is of the basic floating point literal is double. So this will be understood as double by the application. So if you want to make it as float, you need to end with f, which stands for float. So okay, this might be confusing. We'll talk about this later. So just remember that the basic default type for integers is int. For floating point, it is double. Just remember this. I will talk about this while we are coding. So this is how you declare a variable, and this is how you store a data in a variable. Now I just want to test your knowledge. Let me give an example. Int. Out of these 3, how many are valid? I believe you understand. Int, there's a 1, 8 at the rate name and under.
That one is not valid because it doesn't start with numeric.
I'm just naming it as 1 to 3. Can anyone say, like, you can say how many are correct out of these 3? Yeah, someone was
Sorry,
saying.
this cursor. Can you move the cursor?
Yeah, sure.
Only one is the second one is correct. String at the rate name is equal to Satya.
Mm-hmm. Why this is wrong?
First one is wrong because that identifiers cannot start with numerics, you told. And third one is wrong because that is integer means you are given here string type.
Right. So this is one reason. Okay. You're correct. You're correct. And the first reason, this is not correct because it is starting with a number. An identifier cannot start with a number. Even this
Okay.
at the rate cannot start, like a string also cannot start with at the rate. At the rate is also not valid. So this is also not valid. And even, yeah, I'm assigning a string to an integer. So this is also compile time error. So that's great. Yeah. Okay, let's get into the other thing, which is coding. Let's start coding this. Did you guys download JVM, JDK in your systems?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. What about IntelliJ? Did you download IntelliJ?
Yes.
Sir, I did.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone did not download IntelliJ, there are plenty of videos in YouTube. You can uh, take some time to download that. I do not want to show how to download the things. I don't want to waste time there. I'm just sharing my other screen. Give me a minute. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, loading.
How about now?
Now, yes, you are able to see.
So just to give you a glimpse, I believe all of you can see my screen. Okay. This is how IntelliJ would look like. So there are three major components that you need to keep an eye on. First one, the left panel. It will show you all your repositories. For example, I have created a repository with name Java inside this location, E drive and Java. And I have created a basic module, and inside it, I'm trying to code a hello world application. So if you just run it, there is a terminal. You can just turn on a terminal. Uh, okay. So you can turn on okay, my system is fine. Give me a minute. Okay, my system is not behaving good today. Let me start sharing again. Okay, I'll fix it by tomorrow. Let's do a whiteboard session again. Sometime in January. We don't have to. This interest is not working. Okay, today we have discussed about how to declare a variable, how to store a data inside it, and what are different types of data types, what is an identifier, and what are the literals. So I'll just write a sample code for you to understand, and you can practice it today evening. Loading. Okay. Uh, so as you guys know, a class, anything in a Java program should start with a class. So this is a class, and a name of class can be anything. I just name it as main, and someone with name Reina, could you stop scrolling? Yeah, okay. So, can anyone say what is the starting point in a Java application? What is the method name that we need to have? I was showing you last day one method. Okay, fine. We don't have time. So we wrote something like public static void,
Public static void main string args. That is the main method.
right? So this is the starting point in a Java application. And so if you want to declare an integer variable, you declare it as int x is equals to 5. And it should end with a colon, semicolon. And if you want to declare a float, you need to declare it as 5.2f. As I was telling, the default floating type is double. If you want to store a float, you need to end with f. And if you want to store double z is equals to 5.2. So if you leave it as it will be stored as float. And if you just want to print some values, you can just write system.out.println.
Sir, now I have one doubt.
Yeah,
In above the class, if above the main method, if I declare int x is equal to 5, it would run or not?
int x is equal to 5, something like this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can declare. So there are different types of variables. Um, these are local variables. This is an instance variable, something related to a class. It is a instance variable. So I will talk about this in the next session. Like I was telling you before, right? A class, this is something that we get in object-oriented programming. So class contains attributes and methods, right?
Yes.
So what you are telling here, it is an attribute. And these are local
Yeah.
variables. So we'll talk about this a bit later. This is a nice question, but we'll talk about this later.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is how you declare a variable. And if you want to print, you just print it. And if you want to do some operations, for example, there are different types of operations, right? Arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulo division. If you want to do some operations, for example, I'm storing a value 5 in an integer value, and if I want to store a value y, I want to store a value 7 in a variable y, and I want to compute this. I want a sum of these two values. So what I'm trying to do is I'm creating another value z, which will be a sum of these two values, x plus y. Any questions about this? I'm going to give an assignment to you today. Let me know if you understood this. Clear? This one is clear for you?
Yeah, clear.
I'm trying to add x value and y value, and I'm trying to assign the sum of these two values into this particular variable, right? So there are, like I was telling you, there are different types of operation. I think we have time. Yeah, we'll talk about operators today. So we have we have talked about variables. Now this pen is not working. Now let's talk about example is int x is equals to 5. This is an example of an expression, not a variable. This is expression. And there are different types of operators. One is arithmetic operators, and second one is relational. Okay, let's first understand this. So as I was telling you, arithmetic operations are requires two operators, something like x plus y. There are two operands and one operator. So you need addition, subtraction, multiplication. Multiplication is something in coding it is shown as asterisk. Division and modulo division. I believe everyone knows about modulo division. Do I need to explain about this modulo? Anyone? Okay, I will just give an example. For example, if you are dividing 5 with 2, 2 2s are 4, and 1 is a remainder. Modulo is something like remainder. This is the value. This is the value we get after division. This is a remainder, and modulo division gives you remainder. This value 1. So this is arithmetic operators, and relational operators are used to do a comparison between two things. For example, int x is equals to 5, int y is equals to 7. I just want to compare these two, like x greater than y. Is this a true or false? Can anyone say this?
False.
Right. So if you want to do some comparisons, you need to have relational operators. Relational operators are like greater than, less than or equals to, greater than or equals to. If you want to do a comparison, for example, x is equals to y. So if you are doing in maths, you assign forget about maths. Okay. If you want to compare two values, you need to use double equals to. Okay. If you want to assign a value, you need to use single equals to. Example, x is equals to 5. I'm assigning 5 value to variable x. Now, if I do this, I'm comparing the value of x with this 5 value. So you need to be clear with these two operators. This is arithmetic, this is assignment operator, this is relational operator. And something similar is not equals to. So this is relational operators. Next, we have logical operators. Logical operators is like we use this logical operators in conditional statements. For example, logical operators are like at the rate and ampersand or two pipe symbols. So it evaluates the and it's like and. For example, if x is equals to 5 and y is equals to 7. So it evaluates two conditions. This is like basically AND operator. It checks this value. If this is okay, we'll talk about this logical. Let's park this logical operators later because we need to discuss a lot about this. And I'll talk about this at the end. So we have logical, then we have assignment operator that I have shown you. Assignment operator is just 1 equals to. And there is a not operator, which is exclamatory mark. And we have unary operators like plus. For example, x is equals to -5. The minus is an unary operator like minus. And we have increment, decrement. So increment, for example, I have assigned value x is equals to 5. Now I want to add one value to this. I want to do like this. X is equals